Well, welcome in to Soul Footing Guidance. We're keeping it casual today with a Two Can Do It shirt that I just got and I love. I'm a big puns person. Today we are going to talk about just the week and some insights and thoughts that I had come up this week as I was navigating a busy life, a busy personal life, especially alongside being a working parent and all that jazz. So, where to start? So, part of why this week was really busy is I had to go to the consulate with my family. My daughter had an appointment at the consulate. We live in Mexico, and the nearest consulate that we have to go to is in Guadalajara, Mexico. So it's like an hour and a half flight. And we planned to go there one day, spend one day in Guadalajara, and come back the next day. And when we were going there, we got to the airport early and everything like that. And then I think our flight ended up being like 3 or 4 hours delayed. So I was just reflecting on these new experiences that I have the opportunities that I have to face being a new parent in these situations that I've been in before, right? Like I've been delayed on my plane before to go somewhere. This was very different to have a 1-year-old who needs to eat and wants to move, and we're in a busy airport. And so navigating it, it's like, again, I've done this before, but I've never done it like this newness. And as I was at the airport, I just had a lot of insights come up around like how to spend the time being stuck in a place when it's out of your control, and doing a lot of observing about like how people around us were handling it, and within context, right? I'm sure some people were traveling for not fun, good reasons. So some people who are getting really angry and really upset when, why we were delayed was a maintenance issue. So no one's fault. No one could do anything about it. No one could make it go faster. We ended up having to take a plane that, they were flying in from somewhere else. So it's like, we can't rush the plane to get here any faster. So some people getting really angry, some people being like, screw it, I'll just fly tomorrow. Like, I don't want to wait. I don't want to deal with it. Other people who are just sitting there. And then there was this group of kids. So many kids. And they were from like school age kids, like I'm guessing middle school. And to see how they were experiencing the airport was just really fascinating to see, right? So they were on this class trip. It looked like they were going for some type of sporting event. And I just remember being a middle schooler, right? Of like, we get to go on a plane and we're going for this, and like how exciting it is. Where for other people in the airport sitting right next to them, having a completely different life experience where like this delay was stressful. For me, it was a practice in surrender of like, yeah, this is where we are. This is what we're doing right now. We can't get there any faster. It is what it is. But these kids were having the time of their life. They were playing, they were talking, they were just being kids. And it just made me reflect on like how we see things and how we spend our time determines how it's going to go. Right? They, like I said, were playing and talking with their friends and just having a great time. I can even imagine, like there were chaperones with them. But I'm sure so many of them were like, I'm away from my parents and I'm at the airport. Like, this is so cool. And it felt like one of those times where it's like, this is a moment for them where they're going to be like, hey, remember that time we got stuck in the airport? Like, it was one of those moments for them. Like, they were creating a memory in real time. Where for so many of us, like, that time in the airport, we're probably not going to think about that much ever again. Maybe we'll be like, yeah, we were delayed that one time. But, like, not really a significant life event. But because I noticed them having that type of moment, it became a significant life event for me in a spiritual sense, because I was just like, how our mindset is around time determines our experience. when we're trying to push and make something happen faster than it can happen and out of our control, that 3 to 4 hour delay is miserable and stressful. When it's something we surrender into, and then for these kids where they actually are like, well, hell, like, we'll just have a good time then. The range of experiences that were happening in that same exact time left an imprint on me, and probably will for a significant amount of time. And I'm now moving into a place where I'm welcoming things like this as new opportunities to learn, grow, and evolve. Because I'm sure in the past I would have been a stressed out, miserable person in the airport for 3 to 4 hours. Where this time was not that. And it was observing and listening and noticing, and it was just a different experience all around. And then the next day, we were at, like I said, the consulate. We made it to Guadalajara, got an Airbnb. I picked an Airbnb that was really cool, like had a really cool city view. And that type of environment is really awesome for me. Like, I could look out the window and just stare at the city for forever. And me and my husband, it's another one of those things where, like, when you are aware of relationship dynamics, we can be so much more conscious of them and kind of take them head on. So when it comes to appointment times and, like, the start time of appointments, I have a really hard time being late. Like, that is just something about me that is difficult, is being late. And especially something like this, where it's like we flew an hour and a half and had to stay in an Airbnb. So, like, for me, it becomes really important that we're where we need to be on time. And we get where we need to go on time as a family, no matter what. But there was this conscious choice of, until we get to our appointment, even though it's kind of natural for us to flow because of my husband's energy, and I know I've talked about that in a previous video, I had to be conscious about, like, for my mental health, I need to be there early. I need to leave in the Uber a certain amount of time early. And we were conscious about it, instead of that being a point of tension or a point of not communicating expectations, because we create an expectations wave together. That's its own thing, right? If we're not voicing what the expectations are, they create tension and frustration or just miscommunication. And we already don't have the same first language. So we have to be really mindful about miscommunications, because they can happen so easily when we speak different languages as our first language. So being conscious about that and being like, until we get to this appointment, I need to be there early. And then after that appointment, when we're in Guadalajara for the rest of the day and we're just bopping around and having a good time, we'll flow. We'll surrender. I'll surrender to his flow. We'll leave places without really a lot of structure. Like, we'll just kind of move with it. And it worked so well this time because of that awareness and consciousness, and making a point to actually talk about that, because in the past we haven't talked about it, and then there's, like, unsaid, unspoken miscommunication that just didn't need to happen. And that day was lovely. And then our flight the next day was at 5:30 in the morning. So we had to leave for the airport at, like, 3 in the morning, something like that, which was really intense. So both of us only got, like, 2 hours of sleep. And if you've ever heard the acronym HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, tired, this is really important for this part of the story, where it's kind of said, when you're using the HALT acronym, that kids can't really tolerate being any of those things without having a hard time, right? When kids are hungry, they have a hard time. When they're tired, they have a hard time. Their threshold for those types of stressors is low, because they're learning how to regulate and manage that. And adults usually can be one of those and be okay. But as soon as you add a second, things go off the rails a little bit. And so, you know, being on 2 hours of sleep, this was another one of those opportunities to grow and evolve, where it's being so exhausted and still being a parent. Because, in the past, again, I've had flights that are really early in the morning where I barely got any sleep. But it's those things you don't think about where, like, when it's just me without a baby, I just go home and I take a nap. Where with my daughter, right, like, we got home, she got more sleep than us that night. So, like, she wasn't tired like I was tired. And so my husband was exhausted too. So kind of navigating the exhaustion while navigating the airport and these opportunities for teamwork and truly, like, both of us feeling more, well, I can speak for myself, feeling more like successful and satisfied in our relationship when we overcome those types of things that could be obstacles, could be challenges, but we face them head on and we communicate and we move into this teamwork flow together. A lot harder when we're exhausted, but we did it. And it took me a little time to recover after that one because I was so tired that day. And then I thought I would get more rest, so I scheduled clients and to work and things like that. So just things that are helpful in the future where I'm like, oh, I have some old conditioning coming in here of like what I feel like I should do, what I feel like I'm capable of, so I'll just do it, when really it's like pushing me to my limit and I don't really need to, right? As a projector, I definitely pushed myself too far and needed more rest that day we came back. So now I know. But again, taking these things as opportunities. I think there can be a lot of information out there or a lot of places where people avoid opportunities or feel a lot of shame in these spots, when really it's like these are where we grow and evolve the most. Where we're triggered, we grow and evolve the most. Like they're almost our entry point. Like anytime something feels triggering or difficult or intense, like those are our entry points in for the most growth and evolution in our life. And it's times like these where I've found that listening to my intuition and shutting out the noise is really important, right? There's so much information out there about like how you're supposed to run a business or, hustle culture type things that just don't work or don't apply in certain life situations, and where intuition is way more accurate. Like, for example, I didn't do certain things and I allowed myself to get a little behind on certain things, or like not post on TikTok or not post on Instagram when I had this other stuff going on. And there's so much noise around like scheduling things out and not missing days and all of that stuff, where I don't think that's actually necessary or that helpful for me. So really undoing some of the conditioning around how we're supposed to do everything. And the other part, like I was talking about with those kids in the airport, the more time for me personally that I surrender a little bit more to how life is moving. I surrender to things that are out of my control. I try to chill out when it comes to timing and rushing and work on my patience. I actually can look around at my life and go like, wow, there's so much more fascinating things to see. There's so many more opportunities to see the beauty in things. Like every single time I think about these kids and think about like, oh my gosh, that's a moment that they will be like, do you remember when we did this? We all have those, right? We don't know we're in them when we're in them. But to watch kids be in them when they're in them, even if they don't know they're in them, it just feels really powerful and allows us to kind of take some of that contagious energy of, okay, cool, we're stuck in the airport. We get a choice on like how we're going to navigate that time when we're aware and we slow down and we throw some intention into it. Because even at the airport, right, I could feel like 3 hours, like that's a long time, happened first. And then it kicked in of, okay, how are we going to make the most of this? How are we going to navigate this? And it ended up, being a sweet moment where my daughter took a nap on my chest like she did when she was little itty bitty, which she hasn't done in a while. And so there are moments of sweetness, but I probably wouldn't have felt that sweetness, right? It just would have been another nap if I wasn't being mindful of this and taking the lessons from around me. Like, those kids didn't know they were being teachers, but they really were. So part of my growth edge that I'm probably constantly wanting to be mindful of, that I want to tune into, is this part of surrender. Surrender to things that are out of our control and move into a place of, I have control over how I see this chunk of time or how I see this out of my control circumstance. I am in charge of my mindset around that time and what I want to do with it. In the airport, I decided I'm going to observe. I'm going to look around. I'm going to be curious about what's happening around me, which I love doing. And it brought this insight from these kids. And even the teachers around me of, people who were getting pissed off, people who were like, fine, I'll just fly tomorrow, and taking it all in. And then moving into, okay, how do I want to navigate this? How do I want to be with this? And we usually have to go slow enough to even have these experiences and have these insights. When we're rushing and we're trying to control and we're trying to blow past uncertainty. Because for a moment at the airport, we weren't actually even certain if we were going to get to fly that day because of the maintenance stuff and the timing of it all. There's beauty in those spots of uncertainty and things not being in our control, but we have to stop and look around and see it. Like, we have to be intentional and on purpose with that, because it's not easy to do. And it's easy to get swept up into trying to control. So much of the stuff we intake every day is about, here, control this, learn how to control this. Learn how to control your body. Learn how to control your mind. Learn how to control everything. And the joke of it all is, like, most of it's not within our control other than how we move with the things that are not in our control. And how we are navigating the life experience that literally is out of our control. There's even a side note to that of how boring things would be if everything was in our control. That would also kind of be like, oh, what's the point thing we could maybe touch on, but we don't need to go there today. So to wrap all this up, when we slow down, these are the moments where we get to feel even more of who we are, where we get to tap into the part of being who we are that is hard, right? There is a part of me that is able to be with uncertainty. There is a part of me that is able to get cozy with uncertainty. And when I allow myself to do that, I learn more about myself. I learn more about who I am. I learn more about the world around me. And I do get to be more of myself in the process. So one thing that I want to make sure to touch on is I don't want to romanticize the, like, being yourself, being who you are. Because it's not often that romantic, right? It's the hard work to, like, slow yourself down or, like, disrupt your patterns is actually, like, it's easier than you think it is, and it's less romanticized than it is, right? It's like, it's not a hard thing, but it's an uncomfortable thing. And we have to be willing to be uncomfortable to be more of who we are. The reward is huge, right? The payoff is huge. But I also want to make sure it doesn't come across as like a just be who you are kind of thing. I think there's a lot more shadow work and intensity in being who we are because we're owning all of us, right? Part of me at the airport has to own that, like, there's a really agitated, not patient part of me. I can let her just run wild and see how it goes, or I can be mindful of, like, oh, this is where agitation would show up. but I'm going to choose to touch into a different part of me, which is the surrendering, patient, observing, curiosity, touch the uncertainty in my body part, right? I have the agitation. I have the not patient. I have the anger. I have all of that stuff that, again, there were people at the airport who were showing that side. They were showing the anger. It's almost like that was the mirror. Like, these kids were mirrors of, hey, you can actually have like memory making, meaning making, wonderful days in these types of situations. And you can have people who are yelling at flight attendants who didn't do anything. And both can be mirrors because we have all of those things within us. That day, I just chose to try to be a little bit more like the kids that day. I know this is a little all over the place today, but it was just on my heart and on my mind, and I wanted to share. So, as always, you can subscribe for more videos that touch on human design, that touch on disrupting cycles, conscious parenting, conscious relationships, all of those things. You can go to my website at soulfittingguidance.com. There are a couple different ways to work with me right now. I'm doing one-on-one mentorship, which is the best if you're like really ready to go into these patterns, disrupt them in real time, do the shadow work with someone alongside you to support you in it. I also have individual human design readings, partnership readings that also includes anyone in a poly relationship. It's like included in that same price. Or family readings for whoever is a part of your family and going into the dynamics there. That is really fascinating stuff. And then you can find me on TikTok. You can find me on Instagram, again, at Soul Fitting Guidance. And I will see you around.